what's going on? Looks like it's just you and me, Danny. How are you this evening? This is a set of grips. I'm actually working on a series of videos for a customer and a friend of mine. It's a set of grips for a revolver, and I'm doing an inlay, putting snake inlays in them. Let me turn some light on so I can see. Any particular questions anybody's got this evening? Yeah, I don't do a lot of woodworking and inlays, but they are pretty slick. There's a Clint Eastwood movie, I think, where he has a revolver that has a set of snakes inlaid in the grip. And the customer managed to find a set of silver inlays somewhere. They're like 925 sterling, and asked if I could put them in for him. So see if I can humor him in it. I own woodworking tools, but I don't do a lot of woodworking. It's not my favorite. It's very tedious work to go from install the inlay, figure out what needs to be removed, remove it, do some wood removal, put the inlay back in. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's very, like I said, pretty tedious stuff. And I don't know from a billable perspective what you would have to bill somebody to make money at it, but I imagine it's a pretty good bit. Santiago, I apologize, brother. My Spanish is absolutely terrible. I understand a little bit, but I don't speak much. So using permanent marker, marking up the back of the inlay, install it into the grip, and then use a piece of rubber, and it should transfer. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. There's dark marks right here around that hole from where the metal is contacting, needs to be removed. Anybody got any gunsmithing questions? Pardon me as I put my tongue back in my mouth. I had the radio on, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. I'll have to turn it up pretty loud. 0, best place to start learning about gunsmithing. That's a great question. Read everything you can find. So there are a couple of books I talk about all the time on the channel. I actually have 2 of them sitting right here. Clyde Baker's Modern Gunsmithing, and then Dunlap's Gunsmithing. Both excellent reads, lots of information. Brownells has a series of books called The Gunsmith Kinks. There's a few of them out there, and I would get in the books and kind of wrap your mind around the basic principles, tools, and that kind of stuff. Hold on, let me grab one book right quick. So this book stays in the shop, but there is a section There's the index, the contents. Tools, basic principles, metalworking. It's kind of an overview of all of the subjects gunsmithing related. And that's a good place to start. Then I would try to find an apprenticeship if you can. It seems to be that apprenticeships are kind of quickly fading. Nobody does apprenticeships anymore, but if you can find somebody that will let you work under them, that's the easiest way to learn actually hands-on. Santiago, unfortunately, no hablo, brother. I said if we could speak in person, I could probably understand a bit of what you're saying, but I'm not gonna, I don't speak any Spanish, not fluently. Good evening, Viking. How are you this evening? Hardest gun I have to work on in repair. Honestly, vintage, 100-plus-year-old, just because parts availability, you're making parts instead of ordering parts. Side-by-sides and over and under shotguns, they all have very specific disassembly, reassembly functions and steps, and they can be a bit frustrating. And then honestly, some of the German stuff, H&K, some of their handguns are pretty difficult. Yeah, Zero, apprenticeship is the best way, man. You can do like an in-person gunsmithing college. You'll get a lot of principles, learning how to run a lathe, how to run a mill, hand tools and stuff like that. But actually working in a shop where you're doing repairs, and in my opinion, is the best way to learn. So give you an example. Those are some of this week's projects. There's shotguns, rifles, handguns. Everything's going to be different. Every day, something different to work on. And I think that that's the best way to learn, is to actually do it. Mason, what's going on, brother? Viking, normally I would say, yeah, I stay pretty busy. I don't like to keep a big backlog of work. Just because I don't like for people to leave guns here and have them for 6 months at a time. But at any given time, I could have 10 guns or 100 guns. It just kind of depends on what I want to take in at the time. Mason, the 6.5 Grendel, I have a little bit of experience with it, AR platform specifically. It's a unique cartridge. It's got some cool abilities, but it's a little bit small for what I would need it for hunting purposes. Frog, congrats, man. Trap is something that I know very little about. There is a significant amount of shooting sports that I don't get to interact with. It's kind of locality based. Trap and sporting clays is not wildly popular in my area. Broomhausen, call away. They already have my number and my address. Mason, anything I can, really. Feral hog hunting's big around here. And I'm in East Texas, and so we've got a big population of feral hogs. But I am a whitetail guy, axis deer, feral hogs, big into small game here lately, and predators, coyotes, bobcats, foxes, that kind of thing. I have been elk hunting, bear hunting, that kind of stuff, but I would not say that that's my specialty. Michael, good evening. Joshua, hello to you. Danny, so you're going to get a bunch of different answers when you start talking about PRC versus Creedmoor. I am on the PRC side. More speed's better in my opinion. A little more powder behind it. Yeah, you Midwesterners, Michigan over that direction, y'all got some big whitetails running around up there. I've got a customer that's a Wisconsin hunter, and some of the size of the body of the animals are huge. Mason, I know a guy who whitetail hunts with a Grendel. I'm not going to talk you out of it, but bullet selection becomes a lot more important when you have less power than, say, a PRC or a Creedmoor. Shot placement becomes more critical too. Oh yeah, Wisconsin. I've got like I said, a customer who is headed to Wisconsin in the next 2 or 3 weeks for a turkey hunt. I guess y'all's turkey season is getting ready to open up. We're already into turkey down here we're in the north zone of Texas, but turkey season has already opened, and the southern zone opened a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, the 243 is in that same category. For me, it's a little light, and the bullets don't perform very well for whitetail. Of course, lots of people kill whitetail with them every year, but I'm of the mindset that I don't want to have to rely solely on bullet placement and bullet performance. Sometimes you can be let down. Anybody? It seems like we're picking up a few more viewers. Anybody got any gunsmithing questions? Anything I can answer? Gun recommendations? Yeah, Mason, that 243 is a great cartridge, especially if you're shooting smaller animals. But that bullet, because they're lighter projectiles and they're usually aimed at varmint hunting, they seem to run out of steam. The terminal performance isn't as good as some of the other calibers out at distance. Danny, the Tormach, I don't use it as much as I thought I would when I bought it. But really, the ability to work on making a part while also working on something else makes me more productive, really, is the main reason. I have a video about 3D printers. It's kind of in the same category. It's not that I'm making big batches of parts or anything like that, but I can program that, set it up and make it start running, and then I can go work on something else while it's running in the background. Just kind of makes me a little more profitable. Mason, budget bolt action's better than the Savage Axis. The Ruger American's a great gun for that same price point. I'm trying to think of another good example. Mossberg Patriot, that's kind of an unpopular opinion maybe, but I have one and I like the way it shoots. Pretty accurate and sub $500. It's hard to beat. Trailblazing, the AR-10 versus AR-15. Part of it, in my experience, is parts compatibility. So there's the standardization between AR-15 parts. Pretty much all the manufacturers use the same set of standards for making parts, and with all the variety of AR-10s, just makes it a little more confusing for people. Also, SIGs, I'm working on a video to do some more in-depth testing. I have a video that came out a week or two ago about the SIG conundrum. Yeah, the Ruger Americans, man, they're hard to beat for the money. Pretty accurate out of the box, decent aftermarket support, pretty reliable. The only complaints I've really had of people is the bolt lift can be more difficult than they're accustomed to. Michael, the Benelli clones specifically, not so much. I've had a bunch of the Turkish guns come through. I've actually I think I've got 2 different videos in process that I'm working on for the channel about Turkish 12 gauges, or Turkish shotguns, we'll call it. But none of the Benelli specific ones. I've done some reading about it. Apparently, they're a pretty decent value for the money. Yeah, Mason, check out the Mossberg Patriot. Also, if you're budget restricted, Stevens has the new or newer, it's made in Turkey. ATA Arms, I think, is who actually makes it in Turkey, but the Stevens 334, I believe, pretty decent bolt action. They make it in a 308 walnut stock. Pretty decent gun for the money. Sub $500, $550. If you're just looking at options. Yeah, 334. Any other gunsmithing questions? Gun specific stuff? Yeah, the Savage Axis, it's hard to beat, really. Savage had kind of a bad rap for a while, but I think money-wise, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a better bolt action accuracy potential for that same price point. Ruger American, maybe. Interestingly, they both use a barrel nut style setup like the Savage 110 does. And that's, in my contention, what leads to their accuracy potential. So the aluminum bedding on the Hogue overmold stocks. Hold on, I may have one actually. Yeah, I picked this up the other day. This is a Hogue overmold. It's an older one, but I do like the aluminum pillars in it. In my experience, this is a Remington 700. Looks like a short action. I like the pillars. I'm not a fan of the overmold, to be honest with you. They get gummy over time, and it's not my favorite. But did you have a specific question about it? Let's see. Banana, welcome to the chat, brother. Danny, the 365, I like the 365 guns. Like I said, I'm working on another video to follow up on the previous SIG video that I had. I don't think the 365 is everything that it's touted to be, but I am working on a video to prove or disprove some of the claims around the SIG platform right now. Yeah, Sam, I agree with you. I've had better accuracy results out of the Savage guns than the Ruger guns. That's not to say that the Ruger guns are a slouch. When you're talking about sub MOA versus half MOA, I would say that the Savage guns are a little more accurate. Yeah, Banana, I'm a hunter myself, man. That's much to my wife's dismay, that's the majority of what I spend my time on, other than working on people's firearms. Either talking about it or planning it or actually hunting. Car 98. You got to give me more info. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, guess. Yeah, Sam, the overmold is, love it or hate it. That's my experience. A couple years ago, Browning had a similar setup, and they had a bunch of issues where over time it got real gummy and it would pick up debris. Hogue seems to have done a better job, but said I picked that one up. I don't even remember. At sub $100 for a stock without a barreled action in it. It seemed like a decent deal at the time. Mason, best budget semi-auto 12 gauge right now. It's probably going to be one of the Turkish guns, to be honest with you. I've never held any of the Benelli clones, but some of the Remington, there's now the name just escaped me. Palmetto had one a while back. It's like a Remington 1100 clone. Pretty slick for the price point, like $299, super affordable. Sam, what do you think about the 7 PRC versus 7 mag? I don't own a PRC and I've never shot one. Is it really enough of a difference to justify picking up a different rifle? Trailblazing, that's a good question. So the NFA stuff aside, it allows the barrel to move independent of the device that's attached. It gives that barrel the ability to move so it can lock and unlock without the suppressor having to move as well. It's kind of the summary of it. Axor arms. Never heard of them. Let me write that down. I'll do some research. Yeah, I've never heard of them. Turkish-made gun, I'm guessing. Yeah, so I have a buddy who guides professionally, one of my hunting buddies, and a year ago probably, he got back from a trip and there was a guy on the trip that was shooting a 7 PRC, and you would have thought that that thing was made out of gold and platinum the way he talked about it. Oh, that 7 PRC is way better than the 7 mag. But on paper, I don't see enough of a difference to make me want to go out and buy another or build another rifle. Trailblazing, that is not a good idea. Yeah, 300 and in, 7 PRC. And so from what I read on it, it really outshines the 7 mag out past like 500. But again, the majority, I'm in East Texas, like you, 300 yards is a long shot around here. Even in Central Texas, where I've hunted some this last season, and a little bit of South Texas, 250, 300 yards is about the max. I already own a 7 mag. It's a Remington 700 Sendero, so I don't really see the need to pick up a 7 PRC if it does the same thing at that distance. Same bullet weight and everything considered. Anybody got any gunsmithing questions? Try to help out as much as I can while y'all got me. I don't know how long we're going to be on this evening. I do like that it is beltless, the PRCs. Just slightly different approach to accomplish the task. And not having to deal with a belt and a magazine can theoretically ease feeding issues or loading issues. Best everyday carry, Nathan. It's going to depend on your size. It's going to depend on how you carry. And it's going to depend on how proficient you are at shooting. And I say that because not everybody can shoot a 10 millimeter, but something in 9 millimeter capable of cycling reliably hollow points. If you're going to carry in a position like an appendix carry that requires a little bit lower platform, SIG 365, Hellcat, the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, the new Bodyguard 380 is a pretty good option. There's a couple of EDC guns that now with larger magazine capacities become really good options. Sam, get a license. That's the easy answer. You can make money doing transfers any day of the week and have zero experience to do it. There is definitely a demand for people to do firearms transfers. Everybody's buying guns online now, and they need to ship them somewhere to pick them up. Yeah, Glock or Bushmaster 20mm autocannon. If you're toting around a 20mm, I don't think everyday carry is your biggest concern. Working on them is a little bit different, Sam. Having some level of proficiency and experience when you're taking people's money to perform a task, you want to actually be able to perform the task. And in my experience, gunsmithing knowledge is earned through doing the work. So, like I said, an apprenticeship or one of the in-person colleges or working under someone, that may be your best bet to get started. Any gunsmithing questions in the group? Take the opportunity while avoiding some trolls to pitch the channel. If you haven't checked out my channel, I've got a pretty decent amount of gunsmithing content. I'm fairly new to the YouTube world, but I'm trying to make content that I would want to watch. Covers a couple of different subjects, mostly around gunsmithing and the gun business. So consider checking it out. Mason, I do have an FFL. So in order to work on guns for people for a living or for profit, you need to be licensed, and I am licensed. Let's see, Sam. Machinery and space do you need to do 80% of smithing? The shop I'm in right now is a 24 by 30. I probably have ballpark 75 grand, 100 grand in tooling if you include CNC. The machine tools are the expense that the biggest part of that expense. 100 years ago, gunsmiths used hand tools and minimal electric power tools or air tools. But today, if you want to be profitable, you got to have some tooling. But space-wise, I mean, you could really do this out of a decent-sized garage if you had to. Trailblazing, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, man. Constant recoil principle. Give me a specific model and I'll do some research. Mason, FFL is not difficult. You got to pass a background check. You got to pay some money. You got to do a little paperwork. And then you got to meet some requirements. So an individual cannot be an FFL holder. It has to be an entity like a business or an LLC. The only exception is if you're a collector of curio and relics. So you have to have some documentation with the state and federal government. I have carried a 320 on multiple occasions. An M17, a 320C. But I'm learning that not all things are created equal. K Black, I carry a 365 pretty regularly these days. I don't have it on me. I couldn't show you if I did, thanks YouTube. but I carry a 365 pretty regularly. Michael, I've thought about this basic tool list video. The water gets pretty muddy pretty quickly. So what I consider basic tools is a pretty expansive list. Say I'm engraving a set of grips right now, and earlier today I installed a scope and put an ejector in a shotgun, and had to make some rivets for a different gun. And so basics kind of depends on what type of gunsmithing you're getting into. Ryan, good Glock holder, like a holster specifically. Yeah, Mason, the LLC is actually pretty easy depending on your state. I would definitely recommend an LLC for the protection that it affords you as a business owner. But for me, the LLC was a little bit of money and a couple of days. And it was that simple. It's not that difficult. Yeah, Michael, the bench stock list, I have dabbled on that a little bit. I have a video that discusses bench stock, and every time I talk about springs or screws in a video, people ask me about it. So maybe start there and take a little small bite at a time kind of thing. Josh, CNC mill, Tormach PCNC 1100. It's a 3-axis. I'm currently in the market for a 4th axis to go on it to be able to do cylindrical objects. I'm based out of Texas. Let's see, Sam. Yeah, if you're mechanically inclined, if you can look at something and pretty quickly understand how it goes together and comes apart, how the parts interface with each other, gunsmithing is not a stretch. It's not a mysterious as people think. That's kind of my goal with this channel, is to maybe demystify is a strong word, but to kind of uncover some of the aspects of it. It's not as difficult as you would think. Now, there's definitely parts of it. Programming and operating CNC mills, not for everybody, but gunsmithing in general, repairing guns, replacing parts, and modifying things is not as difficult as most people would probably think if you can understand how to use basic hand tools. Yeah, Michael, actually, let me grab that box. So for starters, these little tackle organizer type trays are absolutely amazing. I keep a couple of them for different types of hardware. So this one is all screws, machine screws, brass screws, stainless hardware, sling swivels, grub screws, you name it. And so when I run low on this, I will order set to replace some of it. And then as I take parts guns apart and sell the parts, what I don't use goes in these bins. But springs, Numeric used to sell a big set by the pound probably of gun springs, and you would get dozens and dozens and dozens of little springs. And I was on the phone with their gunsmith, their parts guy, the other day, trying to get them set up to do another run of these. I'm actually running low on coil springs, but they sell flat springs and just about everything you could think of. But having that stuff on hand, understanding how springs work and wire diameter versus coils versus length, it's pretty easy to take a spring out of a bin, cut it to size with a set of wire cutters, and put it in a gun and make it work. Let's see. Okay, let me write that down. Trailblazing, I appreciate it. when I get done with doing a live stream, I'm usually on the computer for another hour looking up all the stuff y'all tell me about. Interesting. Yeah, I'll do some reading about it. I say I'm not super familiar, but I can do a little research. It depends. Some weeks I pack up and go hunting, and some weeks I work 40 hours, and some weeks I work 80 hours. It just depends on how much work I want to do. I own the business. I do the work that I want to. And fortunately, I do this without needing to earn a huge portion of my income from it. So it gives me a little more freedom. So Sam, I will tell you that hobby gunsmithing armor work is very enjoyable, personally fulfilling. Working on umpteen AR-15s for people because they launch a detent across the shop can kind of take away some of the fun side of it. If you were starting from ground zero, absolute ground zero, I would probably start on your personal collection. Go to gun shows, things like that, and then purchase things that aren't necessarily 100% complete or missing things. Buy yourself some basic hand tools and some measuring equipment. So a cheap set of calipers and understanding the fit and finish of things. Work on your stuff until you get comfortable with that, and then slowly work your way into working on other people's stuff. That's how I would do it. Yeah, Michael, I don't want to show y'all my parts stash. So I have probably 25 of these little tackle organizers in different styles. This one has tiny holders inside of it. That's all grub screws for front sights and teeny tiny like 440 and smaller screws, 356. There's shotgun beads in there. I have tons and tons and tons of parts, but that's honestly, that's how you're productive and profitable in this business, is having stuff on hand. Yeah, Sam, I get it. If there's a difference between a gunsmith and an armorer. This may hurt some people's feelings, but an armorer is a guy who replaces parts, front sights, firing pins, things of that nature. You get on a catalog online and you order the parts you need to replace it. And a gunsmith, that step up from armor work to gunsmithing, is having the ability to make parts from scratch. And that is the expensive step, because then you have to have the tools to make the parts. And so you don't need a CNC mill, but a milling machine and a lathe are almost essential when you're talking about making. So I'll give you an example. Let me look. So something like that. It's a shop-made tool. It's a piece of stainless plate from God knows where. But that's not something that you readily could make with hand tools versus just swapping. Let me look. I have parts everywhere, by the way. So this is an ejector from a 22. It's broken and the back half of it is missing. So to understand how this works, how it fits in the gun, how to measure it, how to make an accurate set of dimensions, and then how to take a piece of raw steel, shape it, and then heat treat it so it doesn't break the first time you use it. That's the difference. And until you can do that reliably in a kind of timely manner, I would stick more to the armor stuff. So, yeah, Michael, I bet I have 100+ barrels in the shop, off of everything from shotguns, rifles, handguns. It just, parts accumulate quickly in this business, but it's a good thing because that's ultimately having parts on hand or being able to make them is what makes the difference. Yeah, Sam, there's nothing wrong with armor work. If you want to expand on that, look into armor courses. There's actually a pretty decent market for people in like the LE community. Not all departments, so smaller law enforcement departments, have somebody on staff who can work on their stuff. And so they have to use somebody like me or an armorer, and that armorer usually needs some level of certification from the manufacturer. But then there's also the insurance side of it, so you have to keep that in mind too. That's a very big question. And there's a bunch of factors involved. So a polymer Glock versus a polymer Sky are two very different handguns. I would say that any firearm at the 10,000 round mark is going to need to see somebody like me, probably less than that. So think about guys who shoot competitively. They go to a pistol match and they shoot competitive IPSC type stuff. How often are they shooting 1,000 rounds, and how often are they servicing that firearm? It's, like I said, kind of a vague answer, but it's a big question that you're asking. I would say at a minimum, 5,000 to 10,000 rounds, it needs to be looked over. Not all things are created equal, though. Yeah, Sam, with ejectors, the steel you start with is important because ejectors see a lot of, we'll call it like impact force. And so it's not twisting necessarily or pulling, but they're being smacked pretty hard, pretty repeatedly. And so the properties that the metal needs to have, either with a heat treat or without a heat treat, are important. Ejectors are one of those, it's like firing pins. It's one of those things you need to kind of wrap your head around the metal before you start just cutting something out of a piece of gutter pipe or whatever you want to call it. I have made ejectors, and the first time I went to use them, they snapped in half. If you're curious on kind of understanding what goes into that as far as metallurgical properties, the ASTM, American Society for Technical something, just lost my train of thought, but the ASTM manual has a lot of information about how testing works for metals, different types of testing, Rockwell hardness, Brinell hardness, things of that nature. You'll find that manufacturers aren't very giving with specifications for the material used. So it can be kind of difficult. You're starting from scratch making something and you don't know what it was supposed to be made out of. Yeah, that's part of why I'm on YouTube, is because I have customers from all over the place that mail me firearms for repair. I just finished a series on a Savage 1907 handgun that I worked on for a customer from Ohio. All rules and regulations do apply. I am a federal firearms licensee, and transfers have to be handled that way, but I do take work from out of state pretty regularly. If that answers your question. Hockey puck, by the way. If you need a bench block, get on eBay, buy you a box of used hockey pucks, and mill a slot in them. Best bench block ever, cost me 25 cents. D-Life, pre-war PPK. I don't think that I have. Actually have those in right now for some reliability stuff. But I don't think I've ever worked on a pre-war one. Josh, that's a little far out of my wheelhouse. I'm a car guy as well as a gun guy. I think those things usually run hand in hand. And so I know what a connecting rod is. I'm assuming that it is. Here's the honest answer. I work on enough guns that, unfortunately for you, I don't need to work on connecting rods. If I took the time to make those for you, that just means that I wouldn't be working on a firearm for another customer, or multiple firearms probably. I imagine it would take me a while to make something like that. You may have better luck with an actual machine shop, like a job shop type place. And like I said, unfortunately, do I have the ability? Sure. But it would be probably cost prohibitive to have me do that for you, because I would then not be working on other things. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Josh, man, like I said, doesn't do me any good to blow smoke up your backside. If you sent me a set of connecting rods and said, hey, can you duplicate these? It's not going to be the top on my priority list. Also, consider if you've got dimensions and like a set of prints for them, there are a lot of like machine on demand type services now where you can send them the prints and they'll send you a quote for how much it'll cost them to make them. It's like machine shops that aren't busy doing other stuff. When they get the opportunity, they can work on your stuff. You may have some decent luck with that. Yeah, D-Man, it's not too far from everybody else in the gun world, but I try, the channel, I'm trying to be more gunsmithing specific stuff, subjects that I'm not seeing covered in other places. Sam, I'm a fan of the Mauser. Anything that's been around that long obviously bears some merit. I own a few of them that I've bought over the years. Some of them projects and parts guns, and some of them complete guns. I don't have any real experience with the new Mauser stuff. Whatever the new production Mauser stuff is. I don't have a lot of experience with that. But old World War II era stuff and post-war stuff I do. Fetch them. That's a good question. So I have done a Burris Fast Fire 3 cut on a slide that doesn't use lugs, and I left it very tight on purpose. Honestly, extra level of insurance is probably a good thing, but I've also seen plenty of RMR cuts that don't have lugs on them, and the gun functions just fine. I think as long as you're using the right hardware and a thread locking compound, you can probably get away without it. Josh, AR-10 lower on a budget. I used to recommend Aero Precision a lot, but they have had some logistics issues lately, I guess is the best way to put it. I was an Aero Precision dealer for a long time, for a couple of years, and sold a lot of their stuff. But they have gotten kind of behind schedule on shipping. I had a customer who ordered some stuff, and like 3 months later, it finally shipped. And so if you can find somebody who's got one in stock, that may be a good option. They're pretty affordable. Outside of that, looking at compatibility, give me a budget. Let's start on that. Give me a price point, and I'll tell you what I think. FV, what's up, brother? Good to see you this evening. If you tell me that you want to build a 308 AR and you got a $500 budget, that's going to limit what I recommend to you. But if you're looking to spend in that, $1,000, $1,200 price point, I think there's a lot of better options. $800 is a tight squeeze for a 308. You might be able to get into one of the Smith & Wesson guns. Hold on, let me look. I got my computer behind y'all. Let's see. I can't give you pricing, unfortunately. Or I can't show you my pricing. Yeah, I was wrong about the Smith & Wesson M&P 10. Diamondback, which I haven't had great luck with here lately. It looks like they are about 1,100. You can probably find them for a bit cheaper than that. Let's see. Do a little search right quick. See what we can come up with. Yeah, I think 800's tight for an AR-10. Although Sportsman Outdoors has a Ruger SFAR in 7.62x51 right now for $859 or $849, excuse me. And then I think, like I said, base price on like an M&P 10 is, I think they're right around $1,000 if I remember right. 900 to 1,000. But yeah, check out over at Sportsman's. They just posted it like 35 minutes ago. Helicopter, pardon the noise. Let's see, get you a part number. Yeah, Ruger SFAR, item number 50611. Sportsman Outdoor has them right now for $849.99 on a limited time deal. Check that out. Maybe a good option for you. Hey, you leave my crickets alone. I got the doors open this evening, man. It feels good outside. Listen, FV, I get it, man, but the guy asked for a gun on a budget, and so we'll call it what it is. Great White, welcome to the chat. So glad you made a valuable contribution. Yeah, the Ruger at that price point, sub 900 bucks. I mean, shipping and transfer, you're going to be right at 925, something like that. It's not a bad option, especially when you're trying to stay under at that $800 price range. Outside of Bear Creek, I don't know that there are any options, and I wouldn't even suggest a Bear Creek to somebody that I was an enemy with. Yeah, if you're trying to piece it together, it can be done cheaper. But understand that AR-10s are a weird world, man. Not all parts are compatible, and not all parts are quality. Like I said, there's some stuff out there that you don't want to spend your money on because you're going to regret it. That Ruger gun for the money is where I would be looking. I said that's a $1,200–1,300 gun on sale for $850. Hard pressed to beat it. That's probably cheaper than I can buy one for, to be honest with you. Yeah, I 100% agree, Iffy. No standardization makes it hard for a guy who is just building a one-off gun to get all the right parts on the first go. Not to mention proprietary receiver cuts and all of that kind of stuff. I'm a fan of Wilson Combat. I have ordered and used a bunch of their product, but their decision to use the receiver setup on their AR-10 platform to me was kind of a head scratcher. You want to make things more accessible, not less accessible, get more customers in the door. That's the way I look at it. Michael, Bear Creek is a sensitive subject, man. Quality control is what I will call it. I have had a Bear Creek gun come in that didn't have a gas port drilled in the barrel. Made it all the way through quality control, shipping and receiving, got to my door. Customer picked it up, took it home, went to test fire it, didn't cycle. I have had probably half a dozen of them over the last year that have broken firing pins or hammers that are too soft and they deform. Quality control sucks. You're gambling when you spend your money on Bear Creek stuff. $1,600 all in. Some of the stuff, I think you use extra quality than a more expensive item would give. So, depending on your scope and your intended usage and what other stuff you want to put on it, a decent set of rings, a cheap, decent set of rings is $100. Any scope that you're going to look at that's going to be worth buying, so-called the base side Vortex, $300 to $400 plus $100 in rings. That's not touching any muzzle attachments. That's not touching any furniture. And $1,000 gun, you're already at your $1,600 budget. Yeah. Yeah, Michael, the firing pin thing, man, I keep firing pins on hand for ARs specifically because I've had enough Bear Creek guns come through the door that needed one. It's unfortunate. But they have a place in the market. People buy their crap all day long. Stuff, I should say, not crap. It's crap. I have an account with them. Everybody who comes in asking about them, I try to talk them out of it. The firing pin, the last one I had, I've probably thrown it out now. It used to be sitting here on the bench. It broke right where the pin steps down. And you should see the crystalline structure of the steel. It's like it's like it was case hardened almost. Like the inside of it was stupid mild, and the exterior of it was glass hard, and it just snapped right in the middle. Yeah, FV, the barrel and the bolts were your money spent on ARs. I don't. It's one of those things that I don't understand why people go out and buy a brand name set of receivers. Do you remember Mega? A big name in the industry a while back. They had some cool custom billet stuff, and everybody was going out and spending stupid money on them. And it's just like, hey man, the receiver just holds the bolt in the barrel. So you know, what AR is my favorite? I'll be honest with you. I had a Sig M400 in the other day. For the price point, was a really good gun for the money. Didn't get a chance to shoot it. It belonged to a customer. I was here for a transfer kind of thing, but fit and finish was great. ARs, there's built versus bought is the question I ask everybody. What's the favorite bought AR? Q products are pretty high on my list. Really good fit and finish. Wilson, I've sold a bunch of Wilson stuff, but yeah. Yeah, Michael, I will tell you, I have a buddy who's in a completely unrelated industry, and his favorite saying is if you're buying a product based on warranty, you're buying the wrong product. And that's my opinion on Bear Creek. Sure, you can get them to send you a replacement pin, but wouldn't it just be easier to have one that worked right the first time? That's just the way I look at it. Yeah, Josh, look at caliber. Um, if you were spending, you want to buy a quality gun that you're not going to have to worry about fixing in the middle of a pasture trying to shoot some pigs, you're going to be north of $1,000. That's just the way I look at it. The last 4 or 5 Radical firearms and Diamondback firearms I've had come through the door have all been here for repairs. I don't recommend them anymore. There's some good options out there, but said the starting point seems to be right about $1,000. Yeah, like FV says, depends on what your purpose is. I have a pig gun that I built from leftover parts, but I put it together, and the important parts are parts that I ordered. The barrel and bolt are things that I specifically ordered. The rest of it was just leftovers from other stuff. If I had a call talking about force reset triggers. I had a call earlier this week. Young man has micro Draco and wanted me to install a force reset trigger in it. And when I quoted him a price, I don't like the force reset trigger world because I don't like uncertainty. We're going to change the rules that we're playing with every day. And so I quoted him really high, knowing that I wasn't going to get the job. And you would have thought I smacked him in the mouth after the quote I gave him. I didn't want to deal with it. Michael, what have I messed with? Bear Creek stuff? Probably north of 100 at this point. Yeah. I'm curious, FV, what's the recommendation for ARs? Everybody has a different opinion on this subject. I'm curious to know yours. Yeah, $400 or $4,000 Trigicon's cheap. Must be one of their entry models. They got some spendy stuff. A lot of my buddies and I are running Pulsar products. A couple of AGM guys in the group. One old guy that we can't convince that his ATN is dog water. But that Trigicon, you put a good gun underneath of it, man. Do it some justice. Yeah, FV, FRTs for me in general is one of those things. It's like I don't need the money. I hate to be that way, but I don't need the money. Yeah, Josh, you can price yourself into a job you don't want to do. Pond fisherman, I'm in Texas, man. I get that question every single time I do a live stream. Huntsville, Texas. Pre-CZ Colts. Good recommendation. What is the patrolmen or the lawmen or whatever they call it. There's some decent stuff in there. Geisley, interesting. Dad is down in Huntsville right now training NCOs. .20-inch barreled AR, huh, Michael? I run a suppressor on pretty much everything I shoot, and so I am out of the 20-inch game as a default. I like to be able to get on and off the four-wheeler or in and out of the buggy without smacking that suppressor every time. My pig gun right now is 11.5-inch SBR 5.56. But I have a Yankee Hill 8.5-inch Phantom can on the front of it, so it's close to 20 inches. So interesting you mentioned stag. I actually have a Bushmaster lower too sitting around here somewhere. So stag being in the arrow group, I wonder if you have seen any difference in shipping and receiving times with them. I'm not a big fan of arrow right now. I don't like having to be a dealer and wait on an order for longer than a customer has to wait. Highly educated FN coming to the chat. Somewhat unpopular opinion around here. I have a couple of guys that wouldn't take an FN if you gave them one. I don't know what the impetus is behind it, but they just don't like them. Josh, do some reading on the ATF Form 1 process. When you're talking about manufacturing your own stuff, I will point you over to them. I try not to get too far into that stuff on live streams, but if you look at the Form 1 process, you will get a pretty quick understanding of what you can and can't do in the suppressor world. Oh yeah, pre-arrow stag then. FNX 45. I don't work on a bunch of those, either reliable or not a lot of them in circulation. I don't have a bunch of them in. To go CZ. Yes, I'm FRT thing for me. It's a no deal thing for me personally. I got one side done, almost dropped it. And let's see, jog view, got the other side going. Pretty close, still got a little bit of cleanup work to do on this side right here. And then pull everything apart, refinish the woodwork, and set these guys in the grill. Not too bad as I drop everything. Came and took your triggers. Oh, were you a part of that whole, we know you bought them online because somebody snitched on you kind of thing? Sam, these are 357. It's actually, can't show you the gun. Hold on. Can't show you the box though. Pieta 1873 Great Western 357. I did a video on the same gun, just a different customer, and I'm getting ready. I'm waiting on the trigger to come in, or the trigger springs to do a trigger job on this one. Yeah, Josh. The movie is it's Clint Eastwood, A Man with No Name, I think is what it's called. They're made to look like a set of grips from a movie. FV, I get it, bro. Like we talked about last time I was on. Knowing when to say enough is important in this industry. I'm waiting on the day I get a knock on the door for some of my online purchases in the past. So stupid. Yep, Man with No Name. I thought that was it. So I don't know where the medallions from. They are definitely a silver alloy. I don't know if they're sterling or what they are, but they've tarnished just sitting on the workbench over the last day or two. I had to clean them back up. But they're pretty robust. And they've got pins on the backside to where they can be inset. Unfortunately, these grips had screws in them, and so I'm going to have to put the grips on, set the screws, and then do the snakes last. But I'm just doing the inlay part right now. Yeah, 18 likes in 72 minutes. But I've also had a bunch of trolls. This particular live stream, for some reason, I don't know if it's the time of day and people are bored or what, but I've had a bunch of trolls stop by. Fetch'em, welcome to the chat. Starting Smith School this fall. What school are you going to? What's a good long-term lathe mill? If you want my honest opinion, two separate machines. I don't like the combination machines. I've never ran one that was rigid enough because they can do both things. It's not particularly good at either of them. If you're looking for a lathe, American Iron's always going to be good, but outside of that, some of the Taiwanese machines, I have a Taiwanese Grizzly, but Precision Matthews, if you're looking at newer stuff, you can look at, what is the name of that company? Shars used to do a bunch of their stuff, but they're all made in Taiwan. As far as milling machine goes, I have a Clausing. I've looked for a big Bridgeport, but around here, oil and gas machine work is super prevalent in the kind of greater Houston area. And to find a used Bridgeport that's not clapped out for under $5,000 is a pretty hard thing to do. So I have a Clausing, smaller 8520, and then the CNC. Yeah, Josh, the Smithy, I think is the name. They used to sell like a Granite was the name of the machine, and it was like a mill lathe combo. I've ran a few of those. For one, they're smaller machines, like benchtop type stuff, so they're not super rigid, but they're just not good mills or lathes. They do a little bit of both, but not a lot of either. I think if you're going to be doing barrel work and you're looking at a lathe, 1640 would be about the size that I would be looking at. Something with a good 1.5 or bigger spindle bore, a DRO, quick change tool post, taper attachment is a nicety, not a necessity. If you're looking at a milling machine, I do the majority of what I need to do on a small Clausing 8520. It's not a great big machine, but it does what it needs to do. Bridgeport or a clone, Webb or Tree or any of the other clones of them are pretty decent machines, somewhere in that $2,000, $2,500 price range for a used machine. Three-phase is the consideration when you're talking about machines of this size too. You got to have the electricity to run them, or enough electricity to run a phase converter. Yeah, Josh, those small machines, they have their place in the market. Who are space restricted and don't work on, if you're working on something this big, it's probably perfect for that job. But when you're talking about a rifle or a barreled action on a rifle, they're not going to get it done. It's too small and they're not rigid. If you run, let me think, like an old Monarch or an old American or an old Clausing Colchester, you run one of those big heavy iron machines, the smaller lightweight stuff just won't won't make it for you. Iron's a red dot, that guy. Both. I own both. I own guns that have both. I like a red dot, but it has its place in this world. I don't think it's for everything. But I like to have both on a gun, fail-safe kind of thing. I had a P320 Max for a while. It was their competition gun that did not come with iron sights. It only came with a Romeo 10 or X or 0 or whatever was on it. I don't even remember at this point. It's a decent gun, but I always wish it had iron sights on it. I've never run one of the Precision Matthews mills. There's one on Facebook Marketplace in my area right now for a pretty good price. It's a square column instead of a round column machine. Taiwanese made machine, smaller platform, like the same size as the 8520. Probably 2K, 2,500 if I remember right. Pretty affordable. But Precision Matthews is a pretty good name in the business. They've got a good reputation for building a good machine for the money. I don't think you can go wrong. If you're looking at a new machine specifically, I think that's a good place to start. There was a Precision Matthews 1640, 1440, one of their Gunsmith series lathes in Louisiana a couple months ago, and I almost bought it because the money was right on it. I don't need another lathe, but the money was perfect. It was super cheap. I almost bought it just to have a dedicated setup to turn barrels, so that way I don't have to keep taking all my stuff off. Opinions on the Tormach. It is a light-duty CNC machine. If you understand that going into it, I think it's perfectly adequate. I can mill steel. I'm assuming you're talking about a milling machine and not their smaller lathes. But the mills, this one's 220 and single phase 220, runs on like a dryer plug, has a standardized tooling, can have a quick change tool or automatic tool changer. In all honesty, that's a $10,000-$15,000 machine, and I think I paid $5,000 for it. Got a pretty good deal on it. If I just use it as an annual mill for the rest of its life, it was worth the money I spent on it. Pretty decent for the money. If you plan on doing like optics cuts and prototyping work and things like that, they're perfect for it. Just lighter depth of cut and more passes. They're not the most rigid machines. I watched a video the other day. I'm into machining too, because obviously it goes hand in hand with what I do. But the Titans of CNC guy, he's all over YouTube and Facebook. He's got a pretty cool video on the new Syl machines, SYIL, and I would consider one of those too. Have you considered having it reground, Josh? I mean, it is an option. There are some machine rebuilders out there that are pretty talented. It's just a matter of scraping the ways to take that slop out of it. It's possible. I don't know about 4 thousandths though. That's a pretty significant 4 to 8 thousandths. Yeah, that's a pretty good amount of slop to take out of something. Ignore my previous comment. Yeah. What's the other company I was thinking of that's making manual machines now? Precision Matthews and what is it? Shars carries them. Oh, golly. Shopsmith maybe? Decent for the money. Oh, if somebody took a grinder to it, I'm not going to tell you to haul it for scrap because parts are worth probably what you've got in the machine. There's always a market for the parts, tables and motors and things of that nature. Fred, what you got, man? Let's hear this super important question. Why would anybody buy a Glock when High Point is good enough? Because good enough is not good enough for some people. I have never owned a High Point, and I have owned hundreds of Glocks. That's a really, really obscure question. Also, Fred, be sure to pay the troll toll. Smash that like button, would you? I feel that that's warranted at this point. Yeah. I knew what he was doing there. I think if you're going to spend time and put yourself on the internet and live stream with people, you have to understand and be able to recognize those types of questions and comments. Not a fan, huh, Effie? I'm told that the carbines are worth owning. What is the 995, 99, whatever they are? I'm told that they're worth owning. On a serious note, does anybody have a Rockwell hardness tester they want to send me? I've got an idea for a video on the whole SIG P320 platform, and one of the only tools that I don't own is a hardness tester, and I want one for this stupid video. Probably get 1,000 views and no more than that anyways. Sam, do I know any old timers that make their own muzzleloaders? I know guys that build them from a kit, but I don't know anybody that build them from scratch. Yeah, I believe it or not, FV, my grandfather owns one of these things. I think he's 85 or 86 now, and he still drives a delivery route for an auto parts, like an independently owned auto parts company. And so he's all over the place pretty regularly in his little, single cab pickup truck delivering parts. And he went to a pawn shop in a town, I don't know, an hour from here. And the guy in there sold him one of these carbines. It's like, who sells an 85-year-old guy a stupid High Point carbine? Hell of a salesman, obviously. Yeah, Josh, the video I want to make, I don't know where my notes are. I was making notes earlier. Is pretty in depth. I'm going to order a brand new 320, and I am going to do both some measurements and some non-destructive testing and some destructive testing. I'm basically going to buy a brand new firearm and destroy it for the purposes of the video. But I think that files may be a little less accurate than what I'm looking for. The kind of the subject I want to drive home is irrefutable evidence, right? There's a bunch of speculation on the 320s and their ability to go bang. But yeah, I don't think files are quite going to cut it. And I probably have a set of those files, to be honest with you. But I want an actual tester for it. Yeah, Sam, the only guy I know that has a Rockwell tester is a knife maker. He actually made this guy for me. His name's Brian, Blackshear Blade Works. And this is one of those fancy, I don't even know what the metallurgy is of it. Some kind of fancy space science metal, real fancy. It hasn't rusted. It's been sitting in my shop for a couple of years without a sheath or anything. Still got a pretty good edge on it, even though I opened all of my FedEx packages with it. But he does pretty decent stuff. He actually has a laser engraver too, a fiber laser. And I have been trying to buy that from him for 2 years now. Yeah, Josh, I want the benchtop, like actual hardness tester. I'm going to use it for all kinds of crap, but I want it for the video specifically. Oh, well, it looks like I have lost bandwidth for the evening. I am going to go ahead and take that as a reason to leave. I appreciate y'all hanging out this evening. I hope I was somewhat helpful or at least slightly entertaining. But in order to prevent you from having to suffer through all the buffering, I am going to take the opportunity to leave. Thanks for hanging out. Be sure to check out the channel.